The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, it's been a hot couple of days for you. I know the other day what were you doing? You were actually covering your cameras in ice cubes or something.
Yeah, I was filming. There was a charity thing that happens in Malmesbury.
Yeah.
Every year or so, musical thing, and they do it during lockdown, and like now they do it in the Abbey House Gardens.
Oh, is this the one? Yeah, it's the one you did last year, wasn't it? With the socially distanced music event thing.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Well, they've done another one. This time they did Bridge Over Troubled Waters, the entire album.
Right.
And of course, it's easy filming them live when on stage because basically they only get one hit at it. If they get it wrong, they go on to the next track. But filming it when they're doing it for a YouTube video is harder because they do multiple takes until they get it right, and of course you don't know which one's right and which one's going to be the one. And coupled with that, so it was about 12 hours, and coupled with that, it was 34 degrees. We had the temperature gauge in just where we were stood because there was no air, no wind. It was awful. I had to get one of the girls to go and get her cool bag from her house, and I was plunging the cameras in ice, believe it or not. Well, in an ice box. You know those plastic things that freeze up?
You weren't literally putting them in an ice bath, like the Wim Hof challenge for cameras.
Well, the ones I've got on loan from Fujifilm, I was just sticking in water, yeah. But my ones, I was being a bit more careful.
Looking after. Did you get good stuff? Well, you've got the edit to do now. It's the hardest bit to do. I don't think people realise that, when they say, oh, you just rock up, make a couple of pictures and off you go, the hardest bit's still to come.
It is absolutely brutal. That edit is going to be brutal as well. It was like the dynamic range was awful because half of them were inside a covered area, half weren't, and then all the clips. And so the sound engineer will master the sound and get me the takes. I then have to match it all up. And it's
well,
it's a big old thing.
You know that August you usually take off.
Fujicast.
It's not happening this year, is it?
I don't think so.
It's not happening. Oh dear, Kev, that's your holiday gone.
I'm very tired.
Well, I bet you are. You said you'd had something like 4 hours sleep the last couple of nights.
I've been doing other stuff as well, so I've been having to get up in the middle of the night to monitor some stuff that's going on.
All's fair in Mullins land, though. Just think of the money, Kev. Think of the money.
Spondoolies.
Yeah, you and your questions today. Welcome to the Fujicast from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the Fujicast private Facebook group. Kev looks after the Facebook questions, and I look after the emails that you send in. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry. It's a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. Thank you to those of our friends that support us on Patreon. Have we got a book of the week, or have you been so busy you've not brought one in this week?
No, I have. I got one. It's called Do Photo.
Do Photo?
Yeah, it's not a traditional photo book. I'll explain when we get to it. It's a lovely, lovely little book.
All right, okay. And of course, as always, some of the subjects, and I'll pick up on one on a moment, they get discussed after the show, usually in the private Facebook group, which you're welcome to become a member of. And we have a guest today, a friend of the show, a photographer and an independent camera store owner to boot, Pascal Diamond, who Kev spoke to last week. Right. Oh, yes. Let me talk about this thing, Kev, that I saw. It was on Facebook. Where is it? Oh, Dave Brown in the group. Did you see the Tamron just announced in development 18 to 300 millimeter?
I did see that.
For the Fujifilm X mount. He says, well, it looks like we can expect some more third-party manufacturer support from the X system. I know many will poo-poo, but just as many will welcome the choice. Why are people a bit reticent about it, Kev?
I don't know. I think it's good. I mean, Fujifilm, I think it was about 18 months ago that they opened up the AF, I don't know what they would call it, paradigm, heuristics, API, whatever. I don't know what the technical term of it is, but the ability for other cameras to hook into, other manufacturers to hook into the autofocus. Yeah. And that's a good thing for the Fujifilm system. More lens choice means probably more camera sales. So, Well, I think it's a good thing.
But particularly with brands like Sigma, people love the Sigma Art range, don't they, for various brands? And that's
I had a Sigma camera when I was shooting with my Canons.
You mean Sigma lens?
One of the art ones.
A Sigma lens, you mean?
Yes, a Sigma lens. I told you I'd been.
Kev, I'll catch you.
Here at 4:30.
I'll catch you. I'm like that little net in the circus. Jump, Kev, jump!
Yeah. Well, make sure you do catch it and don't move right away at the last minute.
No.
So I had a Sigma lens. It was way before the art things came out, but it was great. I think it was like a 105mm 2.8 or something for Canon. Yeah, it was a lovely little thing.
I think I had the 85. Well, I did. No, I did. I had the 85mm art lens, which was superb. Sharp as, what are you supposed to say? Tack, nails, or whatever. I've not been up as long as you either. And but I found that it was a little bit too easy to damage. But I don't know. It wasn't made as well as the proprietary lenses that I had for the system at the time. Thumpingly good lens in terms of optics, but a bit too easy to dent.
Sounds like me.
Kev. But Tamron is on the way, and there's a post about it in the FujiCast Facebook group. So, questions. Talking of Facebook, do you want to go first then?
I shall go first. Thank you. We've had a few questions this week, which is great. So, as I always do, I will start with the last one. And this is from Albert Villaroman. He says, I'm going to do the 24-hour project this Saturday in New York City. I'm going to try and figure out whether I should pack light or carry a backpack to have some essentials like a battery pack and water bottle. What would you carry around the city for a whole 24 hours?
Well, Kev, I think at the moment. I mean, he'd be so tired, I'd have to carry Kev.
I would need carrying, yeah.
I would have to put you in the camera bag. Take all the dividers out for once. Make sure there's enough room for you, and carry Kev.
I honestly, I don't think I've ever been quite as exhausted. Yeah, I mean, this 24-hour thing is this this is that global thing that happens all over the world, isn't it? I think. So by the time this comes out, Albert, you will have done it presumably. So I hope it went well. But yeah, you've got to. I mean, New York City, middle of July, end of July, it's going to be hot. It's
going to be roasting, isn't it?
Hot.
Yeah.
Especially with all the global warming stuff that's going on at the moment, floods, fires, hot, cold.
I know.
Yeah. So yeah, water. Definitely take some stuff to carry water for absolute sure.
I mean, minimum of camera kit really.
I'd do it with just X100V. I have to say.
Yeah, I was about to say, would you just do it with that, because you've got the 23mm lens on there, 35mm effective length for those that need that converting. I know you don't like that, Kev. That should do the job nicely for you, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the style. If you're more into getting kind of street portraits and things like that, then maybe you want something a little bit longer.
Well, but I don't know, that would be perfect for it. You mean you might have to get close in, closer than you might feel comfortable with, but pretty, 23mm length for street work is spot on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it depends on really what you're trying to do. But I mean, I love shooting in New York. I've done it a few times, and I like the X100V. Actually, probably the best time I had in New York was when I just took my X70 out for a few hours. Loved that. That was ace. Totally discreet. It just looks like a mobile phone in your hand. Boom, where you go.
A few spare batteries.
What I was going to say was, Albert doesn't say what equipment he actually has. So if you've got an X100V or an T4 or 3 or Pro or whatever, the latest ones, I'd probably just take one of those power banks.
Power banks. Jump, Kev, jump! I'll catch you.
I got one somewhere here, and actually, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
The one I've got, it's Anker. That's the make of it. Anker, Anker.
Yes.
But the power dispersion one is the one you want. And I did all that filming on Thursday. I had an XT4, which is on loan, and I just had it running off that power bank all day, 12 hours.
Wow.
Didn't change batteries once.
Change it once, wow.
So that's probably the way I'd go.
In that 4 degrees, did you say?
It was 34 where we were standing, 34. But I would imagine the actual temperature was like 30 degrees in real life.
And in terms of overheating, which you would not blame any camera for doing when you were filming, because that's constantly on, and what was the one that was overheating for you?
Well, it was the one that was in the direct. So I had a locked off camera, which was my XT3.
Right.
And that was in direct sunlight basically for about 8 hours.
Oh my word. No wonder it overheated.
we started shooting 4K, but
Yeah.
I only did the first song in 4K, and then I went down. I told the others who were filming with me to go down to full HD because that's a lot less power intensive. And then so they both kind of complained a little bit about the heat at some point. The XT4 was good actually because you've got this option to set when it tells you it's too, not set when it tells you when it's too hot, but it'll say, look, I'm getting hot, think about it. And then after a little, and it says that in yellow letters. And then after a little while, it gets angry at you and it says it in red letters. It says, look, I'm really f***ing hot now. You need to think about stopping this recording. And so, it's good. It's good like that. But it was just constant heat.
My Fujifilm cameras, they don't curse. Yours do.
Yeah, mine do. I've taught them well.
Right, Tim Binder. I currently own an XT1 X Pro 1, X100F and XT3. Your life is sorted, Tim. I do not shoot to sell, and photography is 100% a passion, not done for a living. I absolutely love the look of the older sensors, and I'm finding more often I'm grabbing my XT1 and probably my X Pro 1 soon. The old "if there was a fire and you could only grab one camera" question? I know this is my decision, but not shooting fast-moving images, not selling my work. Would it be daft of me to stay with the XT1 and X Pro 1 and sell the other two? Or another option is to sell the X100F and XT3 and buy an X100V. But I don't use the X100F that often. I mean, if you like the older sensors, I love using the X Pro 1 and it was Tim that sent in a vintage lens, the 28mm vintage lens.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like the rendition, well, why not? Yeah, and perhaps sell the later cameras that you have and have the X100V so you can have a little bit of low light fun as well, because the X Pro 1 and XT1 are not a lot of fun in low light.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think go with what makes you happy. Go with what makes you smile. This is why I'm on my second wife.
Okay. Oh dear. Well, there we go. That's that one sorted then, Tim. I'm not quite sure. And obviously you can't be trading in wives. Not even for an X100V.
Oh no, the money goes out, not comes in when you swap.
Right, Kev, move on quickly before you do too much damage.
All right. Scotland's finest firefighter, Murray Macmillan, says, hey, Kevin, Neale, wondering if you both had a chance to catch the recent BBC show, The Great British Photography Challenge. And if so, what were your thoughts on it? He goes on to say, I like Rankin's work. So Rankin was the main kind of protagonist, whatever, yeah. I found the show entertaining. I'd have loved to do something like that. I wondered what the selection process is for something like that. It seemed a little bizarre as one of the photographers didn't seem to understand even the exposure triangle on one of the episodes. I'd have thought maybe they had to be at a certain level to be included. Anyway, great show, he says. No spoilers as to the winner if you've not seen it yet.
No, well, I've not seen it. I'm not in charge of the telly box in our house at all. So often people say to me, have you watched, and you must, and this one's, and I'm thinking, well, I'm never going to see it because I'm never in charge of the telly box.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it.
I saw like half of one of them. So
that obviously means it didn't grab your attention.
Well, it didn't, but I agree with Murray, actually. I think it seemed pretty good. And he says, one of the people didn't have a clue about, exposure and stuff like that. And if you look at any of these shows, there's always some fella on the baking program that doesn't even know which way to put his cupcakes up.
Well, yeah, and that's, you cast those people because they make entertainment. I know that sounds a bit cruel, but you put them in the same as they do with The Apprentice. You think, is that the finest you can do?
I can't watch that show, That Apprentice. They really do find the worst possible people.
Yeah, I know.
I tell you what, I did watch. I watched, and I absolutely love it, and it's really, really cool. It's called Glow Up.
Glow Up.
It's called Glow Up. Yeah, it's exactly the same as all these things, baking and photography and everything, but it's makeup artists, and these people are absolutely phenomenally talented. Apart from there's usually one person who just draws a big circle on their forehead or something at the beginning, but other than that, I mean, they are incredible. I love it. It's proper art. Glow Up, yeah, really good.
Oh no, I've not seen that. I know Rankin, though, going back to that one before we get too sidetracked, he did get a bit of a it got a bit of a duffing from some photographers. I was thinking at the time. I was thinking, well, this is clearly because people are very jealous about Rankin presenting it, and as any photographer that puts him or herself out there to present that program, you're always going to get those that say, "Oh, I didn't think they were very good." Well, was it Rankin that put you off, or was it just the format, Kev, or what was it?
I just didn't catch it again. I think it was on at a funny time, and I might go and see if it's still on the iPlayer. I find it quite interesting. I mean, I would much prefer something like that with Rankin if it was more like Glow Up, where these are like, they're not professionals, but they're top of their game. So I would love to see a TV show where it's all about kind of trying to produce those amazing portraits that Rankin does and stuff like that, because I think the one that I watched was go outside, take a picture of a tree or something. So it was that didn't capture my attention, but I like Rankin. I'd like to see something a little bit more focused, I suppose. Do you know what Rankin's real name is?
No.
John Waddell.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, Rankin is his middle name by birth, I think. So John Rankin Waddell.
All right. Okay. The other thing to remember with programs like that is that we like to think that it's only photographers that watch them, but it's not. The larger audience is probably not going to be toting a mirrorless or DSLR or whatever. They're probably going to be using iPhones and smartphones, and the large majority of the audience out there. It's very difficult, I think, to make any kind of program that talks to everybody. Yeah, and that's probably worth remembering as well. But I must go and if I can snatch back the telly box for one evening, maybe I'll go and watch a few.
No, go and watch Glow Up.
Oh, Glow Up instead. All right.
Yeah, love it.
Brewdog mystery. Kev, solved. Solved.
Is it?
Yeah.
Who was it then?
We got some Brewdogs, didn't we? It was James Souls.
Ah.
Yeah.
James.
Glad the beers went down well, he says. I've not tried the Elvis juice ones yet, but they sounded rather interesting. Have you had the Elvis juice ones yet? That sounds very rude.
Are they the ones you gave to me?
Yes.
Of course I had them.
You probably had them.
You gave them to me like
2 weeks ago almost now.
If I had them.
Well, I don't know. He may sort of...
I waited till he walked out the door, and then I just threw them all in my face.
Okay. Yeah, we split the pack. Well, Kev had 2 packs. I had 1 because I knew he was in desperate need of them.
Oh, is that? I didn't know that. I thought you had 2 as well.
No, Kev. No, I didn't do it like that. Your need is greater than mine at the moment.
Never mind. Oh, poor James. He was meant to be on my workshop on Monday, but I had to cancel it because
you got beer instead.
I got really pissed. Yeah, no, I had to cancel it because some of the people who were coming had been pinged. Ping, ping.
Oh, had they?
Yeah, and one of the others was a bit uncomfortable about travelling to London and stuff. So So sorry you couldn't come on my workshop, James. But thanks for the beer.
Enjoyed the beer. When do your workshops? I know that you've been really disappointed, of course, not being able to host them, and the pinging thing is that's a whole debate all of its own. But when do you think it's safe to go back out to the street with your workshops, Kev?
I'm not putting any online now until it looks. You just don't know. I mean, everybody's saying now that in the middle of August we're going to have ridiculously higher numbers than we've ever had. And please God, it will still be a lot less people dying from it. But and the thing is, that's just going to put people off. So I'm just holding fast now. I mean, I've done 1 street photography workshop in 18 months. I used to do 3 a month, 4 a month.
I know. I noticed, by the way, you didn't respond to my suggestion of doing a James Revilius type one where you just went down to Devon and photograph people along country lanes. That'd be safe, Kev.
Where did you post that?
No, I sent it to you by email.
Was that on Messenger?
It might have been on Messenger. One of those. Kev, I've got a great idea. Why don't we try that? Why didn't you try this?
Yeah, no, I've done things like that before, actually. We went to... Where did we go? We went to just off the coast of... Where's Weston-super-Mare? What county is that in?
Somerset.
Somerset, yeah. So somewhat inland in Somerset. Yeah, similar kind of thing. But I've got a really good idea for a really cool workshop.
Right. You going to tell us?
No.
Oh.
No, because it's a really good idea, and there's a lot of pins that need to fall into place.
Right.
If that's the analogy. So no, but I will do that at some point. at the moment I've just lost all interest in it. You know, it's like I can't organize it. I've had to give back so much money over the last 16 months, and fairly, you know, it's not fair for the people who are due to come as well. So I think I don't know. I mean, in my mind, I'm probably thinking late September, October. I'm hoping that by then, you know, it will just be a long forgotten blip on the landscape.
I'm not sure it's going to be a long forgotten blip on the landscape ever, Kev. But we
said that last March, didn't we?
Yeah,
April.
All those. I remember reading at the time, or I still read to these days when I'm reading bios of people that I'm going to interview, where they were saying, "Well, we locked down, but I thought it'd only be about 2 weeks, and we'd all be out again." But I'm dying to know about this. I can't ask you anymore because you're not going to tell me, are you?
No. Well, I'll tell you privately.
Will you?
I'm just not going to tell.
James, send more Brewdog. He might tell us publicly. Quick, urgent, Brewdog. Send it to Malmesbury. Just all you need to do on the packet this time is put Kev Mullins Brewdog, and it will get to him. Because Postman Matt.
Postman Matt.
He'll find you. In fact, don't even put Kev Mullins on the front. Just put Brewdog urgent, and Postman Matt will know that he has to take that to Kev.
Yeah. I had a lens turn up the other day from Fujifilm, and it was I got a message to Andreas to say it hasn't arrived yet, and he's like, "Oh, according to this, it's been delivered."
Oh no.
So off I went to the hairdressers, which is usually where my stuff ends up. It wasn't there, and I came back into the studio, and it was on my sofa. So. The lovely I've got John is my postman at the moment. He just wandered in. He probably saw I had my headphones on and just stuck it on my sofa and wandered out again.
I hope you weren't wearing your underpants like you usually are, just your underpants, nothing else.
Do you know what? I've only got 3 pairs of like cargo shorts, shorts you can wear out rather than in a swimming pool. So today I'm in jeans and I am literally melting.
Shorts, Kev, shorts.
I know, I'll need to buy some more. But then it's going to rain again on Saturday, isn't it? We're going to get thunder and lightning.
No. Oh.
Yeah, it's coming. We're getting these huge storms.
Are we? Oh, dear. Well,
yeah.
That doesn't bode well. Johan Boarhead. Hi, fellas. What's your take on watermarks? Do they have a time and place? I tend to use them as my business card when I do volunteer work because some people tend to forget to give credit to the photographer, ... Yes, they do. Do you use them? And in that case, when and why? Well, for wedding pictures now, I have to say I don't really use them. I know that you do. You put your Mullins in the bottom, don't you? And it's not
my website.
It's not that I don't place any value on them, Kev. It's just that I know that people look. They're wedding pictures. They're pictures I'm proud of, but they're unlikely to be pictures and the couples have given me, permission to use them.
Yeah.
But they're unlikely to be pictures that are going to sell for gazillions. I know there's always but they could have good PR value, and somebody will look in the bottom right-hand corner and say, "Oh, Mullins or Neale James or whatever," and go searching for you. But I can't remember a time when ever somebody has said, "Oh, I saw your little caption in the bottom and I knew it was you and I looked it up on Google and here I am."
Yeah, no, absolutely. The reason why I have mine there is on my wedding website because it looks quite nice, and B, just purely because I often, actually not so much these days, but used to, a lot of the times the images were used for, on other websites, about Fujifilm and stuff like that, which is fine. So that's generally the reason. But I don't do it on social media, at least unless I'm just copying one off my website. Certainly don't do it for the clients. And I understand if you're a commercial photographer for sure and you sell rights to your images, a subtle watermark makes sense. But what I don't like is those, what you see wedding photographers who, we both agree that really no one's going to nick a wedding photo, and they stick a massive watermark with a great big swirly thing or something right in the middle of the picture.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
It takes my eye away from the picture.
Yeah, we can't see the picture, can you? Because there's a massive swirly thing in the way.
Yeah, but even those that have this sort of slightly more or slightly smaller swirly thing, it's still, for me, it just takes my eye away from the picture. So when I'm sort of showing stuff, I like it to be unwatermarked. I don't want it to.
Yeah, my advice is if you're going to put a watermark, keep it subtle, keep it lower left.
Yeah.
And if you're not commercial, this is, and you're not kind of selling rights, and drop the saturation, have it faded, so you can see the image in the background as well.
On my website, the one thing I did do when I was thinking, well, if I'm going to use watermarks, I'll use something that might be handy in terms of somebody then using it to look for you, which slightly contradicts what I've just said. But so I use my @Neale James. So it, there's that must be the Instagram.
Yes.
So I thought that might be quite a useful tool as much as anything.
I made a big mistake when I first started using Twitter a billion years ago. So my Twitter and my Instagram handles are different, which is annoying because you can't just use @Kevin Mullins Photography because then it doesn't work on Twitter. So, and you can change it. You can change your Twitter handle, but then you lose, all of everybody who's tweeted you and stuff like that.
But in terms of Johan, yes, good idea to use when you're doing that kind of work that you say, because yes, people do forget to give credit to the photographer. That would be a good time. I concur. Right, Kev. I think it's time to hear from our guest this week, and it's a Kev special where you've been off to find and talk to a few more of our friends of the show. This time, Pascal Diamond, who owns the only independent camera store in the north of Ireland. Quite the feat, particularly at a time some larger camera stores complain of sales moving primarily online, but it's all about the customer and the service, as you're about to find out. It's helped by having a photography relationship with the gear you choose to, as in the case of Fujifilm and Pascal Diamond.
The first question I need to ask you, Pascal, how do you get the name Pascal Diamond being in Northern Ireland? Where's that come from?
Well, actually, my birth name as the certificate is Gabriel Pascal, but the name Pascal sort of came from my grandmother, and she insisted that it take precedent over Gabriel. So that sort of stuck with me.
Yeah, well, you're talking to Neale. Obviously, he's got about 25 different names, so
yes.
you're not alone. Okay, Pascal. So we've got you on the show because I really like your pictures. We really like your pictures, but also because we want to talk about your store. And one of the things that comes up on the podcast quite often, I would say, we often get emails from people saying, don't link to Amazon, don't do this, don't do that, support the local stores. And I always buy my cameras. If I'm not buying them direct from Fujifilm, I buy them from an independent. And you are the only independent camera store in Northern Ireland?
Yes, that's correct. I have been for probably 12 years now. The business originally started under the name of Victoria Camera Video Centre Limited. It was formed by two guys of the name of Gary Bradley and Stanley McElreevy. And they started the business in the late 1980s. Really, that time in Belfast, in the city centre, there was about 4 or 5 independent shops. And then in the sort of the greater Belfast area, there would have been probably another 3 or 4, but there never was really any camera stores outside of sort of the Belfast area. And they were in a very fortunate position where, they had a really good business and a good business ethic, where it wasn't a commission-led business. It was really about putting the customer first and giving them what they needed. It just has been something that I've sort of adhered to and followed through all these years later.
I think you started there really quite young, is that right?
Yes. Well, my real, I suppose, earliest interest would have been at school when I was doing my O-levels, and we were quite fortunate that we had a very passionate photographer in the physics teacher who taught the O-level photography as well. And I had approached him to see about, could I sort of drop my O-level history and join in the photography class? And he just wouldn't permit it. And the ironic thing is, many years later, he became a customer of mine in the shop. So it was something I took a bit of pleasure in reminding him of, all those years later. But I never owned a camera. I used to enjoy going into a lot of sort of news agents when I was quite young and flicking through all the sort of photographic magazines, and the fashion ones, the high-end ones, typically like Vogue, I sort of steered towards them because of the level of photography, especially in black and white. And I had no real interest to be a fashion photographer, but I just loved the style and the way the work was sort of printed and presented, and it stood head and shoulders from everything else. And then probably quite a few years later, after I'd left school, sort of the passion was still there, but I still didn't own a camera. And I'd left school. I was supposed to do my A levels, and I decided on the very last day, O level, that's it. I'm not coming back to school, even though I really enjoyed school. And I went out, became an apprentice joiner, and eventually served my apprenticeship and became a joiner, and sort of worked all over the north, and still no camera, but saw all these amazing places. And then this one particular year, I went to Galway on holiday. I just recalled seeing all these amazing buildings and street life and everything. And I said, right, as soon as I come back, I'm just going to buy a camera. And I went till it was a pharmacy in, again, a local town in the north here in Ballymena, and I bought my first camera. It was an old X300, and I had researched sort of the camera that I wanted, which was a Nikon FM2N, but I couldn't afford it in the 1980s. And I just, like a lot of people, we just looked longingly and sort of desired after these sort of iconic cameras. But I bought them an old, started to teach myself really, and it was hard then because you had to wait, until your roll of film was processed to see what you got back, and unless you took notes to see, what your settings were or whatever, you had no idea when you get your set of prints back, what aperture you used or whatever. And then I slowly but surely started to move to doing black and white work, and very quickly realized that it cost an arm and a leg to send black and white film to Pro Labs in London to have a roll processed and a contact sheet made. So I then looked about developing and setting up my own darkroom. And shortly around this time, I discovered the shop in Belfast called Victoria Cameras, and I got to know the two owners quite well in it. And probably after about a year of being a customer with them, they had said to me, look, do you fancy being the Saturday boy? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, look, all our staff like to have a Saturday off. So do you fancy sort of covering one Saturday each month to let a different member of staff have a day off? And I said, yeah, sure. And what I did, rather than take pay, I took film and chemicals and paper in lieu of a wage. And after probably about 6-7 months of that, then they said, look, would you do every other Saturday? That progressed to every Saturday. And probably 2 years after that, then they said to me, look, do you fancy going for a drink some evening with something we'd like to discuss with you? And I said, yeah, sure. And it was literally, look, we would like you to come and work full time with us. So it didn't take a lot of convincing to leave all the joinery tools behind, and all I could think of was like no more standing on a building site in a wet one day, and you go into a shop clean, warm and dry, and you come out the same way. So I started that way, basically in the shop. That was my introduction into becoming a member of staff in the shop itself. And after I was in the shop a while, I was given the task of looking after all the second-hand equipment. And this was long before the days of eBay. So we would have had quite an amount of stock coming through the door constantly. And we had a large sort of collectible section, as well as all the regular equipment and everything. So it was a case of me booking equipment in, testing it, cleaning it, and getting it ready to go out on the display. So I learned quite a lot about all makes of cameras from all sort of eras. And the shop then continued to work away, and the two owners then had decided they would like to open a second shop. And there was a guy had a photographic studio with a bit of a shop attached to it in a border town in the north here, in Enniskillen, and they had thought about buying it, but the deal fell through. And on the day that they'd went to see the owner of this other shop, Gary had been driving back through Cookstown here, and he saw the building that the shop was currently in here. He saw it being built, and he thought, well, there's a possibility of, a store there. So they came and had a look at Cookstown and thought, well, look, this could be ideal. It's right in the middle of Ulster. There's no other competition up this way. So we gave it a go. And 23 years later now, the shop's still here. Belfast closed up about 15 years ago due to redevelopment in the area. And Stanley, who lived quite close to Belfast, Stanley had worked 53 years in photographic retail. So he said, look, it's time to hang up the boots. So he left the business, and that left myself and Gary working away here. 8 years ago, Gary dropped the bombshell on me. He said, look, I think it's time I retired. Do you want to stay on and run the business yourself? And at first, I was sort of very unsure. I thought, how could I possibly sort of take this on and do it myself? But I thought, well, it's either that or go back to working on the Bolton site again. And I really didn't fancy doing that. And I was very fortunate that my wife was 110% behind me. And Maria had said, look, just go and do it. You're there all the time anyway. You know the business. You've been doing it for quite a long time. You're well known. You're well liked. So just do it. And if it feels for you working on its own, then you can consider doing something else. So 8 years later, I'm still here flying the flag as the only independent in the north. And we used to joke with a lot of the reps from the big companies that would have come over, because, again, long before COVID, the reps would have made a visit usually 3 times a year. And we joked that, we would outlive and do better than lots of all the big guys. And we've seen lots of the big guys fall by the wayside over the year, and it's horrible to see, people losing their livelihood and everything. But it's just the way things have changed and moved, and the transition from film photography to digital wasn't kind to some dealers. Some dealers just really hadn't thought that it would take off, and maybe didn't think it was worth pursuing and want to move. And the way we looked at it is, well, we have to, it's either sink or swim. And we embraced the changes, and we've done well with them. And now I've sort of continued it on and still really enjoy it. So it's essentially not like coming to work, because it's doing something that you love doing, really.
I think that's, that comes across quite clearly, when I'm looking at your Instagram account now, and, there's some wonderful pictures on here. There's some of them that I kind of, I love the guy having the tattoo. Is that, I couldn't figure out, is it a tattoo of a brain or something?
Yeah, tattoo, yeah. Oh, it's like the Tree of Life.
Oh, it's the Tree of Life.
So it is. It's just the angle that it was photographed at. And the tattoo studio, it's actually probably about 200 yards from me, and they're all Polish guys that work in it, and they said, look, we'd love to have you back. So I'm really considering going back to try and do a wee project, build it up to see what I can get out of it, just purely for personal pleasure. And I'm happy to give those guys the images to use for whatever they want to do. But like a lot of what I photograph typically will be on my morning wanders around the town here, before I open the door at 9 o'clock. So I enjoy that sort of peace and quiet of just lifting my camera and going for a walk.
It must be quite cathartic, really, working, like giving your whole life to an industry that you actually is also your hobby.
Yes, it is. And it's nice that I've got the support from a lot of the companies, and I become very much a big fan of Fujifilm gear, and I use an X Pro 3 myself, and that was by choice. I was still shooting with my Nikon FM2s right up until the release of the X Pro 2, And when I went over to the photography show, I was actually going over to look at some new Fujifilm equipment for the shop here in the printing side of business. And I knew this was just about to be released, and I thought, right, I think this is going to be the camera for me, because I loved the way cameras were, where you were in control. You had a shutter speed dial, you had an aperture ring, you had an ISO dial. You know, that's all you needed to make a photograph. I just love what the equipment does, and people, or my customers, sort of feed off my enthusiasm for the equipment and the Fujifilm approach to how photography and cameras are. And it's lovely that I have that support from the guys at Fujifilm, and I sort of miss the way everything has happened over the last sort of year and a half, where they would have come across to do open days here. So
who was the rep? Who was the Northern Ireland rep?
Well, they had a couple of guys in the UK, and I would know Andreas there, and I'd be talking to him, even though he would be in the marketing, and Terry then in the marketing as well. But the other guys, there was a guy called Ross Campbell. He had hung up his boots, and then the guy that came off, filled Ross's boots then was a guy called Lawrence Wokes. And then Lawrence hung up the boots, so it was just dealt from with head office. You know, and they're a smashing bunch of guys, and they're really good. So, you know, I got to meet Terry a few years ago at the last photography show that I got to, you know, and I say everybody was so helpful, and because they are a smaller company, they have a different outlook and approach. You know, you're in their head, you count, you know, purely and simply, you're important to them because you're selling their product.
I think, you know, without this being too much of a Fujifilm love fest, although it is the FujiCast, you know, kind of align the small independent retailers with a company like Fujifilm, because, as you said, you know, they're small. I mean, I've been involved with the team, you know, kind of from the outside, but from the kind of designed and developed the X series.
Yes.
From the beginning, really. And, you know, there was just 23 of them, you know, and they kind of sit in a room and have these meetings, and, you know, and their attitude always was based around the photographer, you know, was always, how can we make something that, you know, people want to use, but also that will allow them to make great photographs. You know, and I think that kind of makes sense, really. Okay, so I always ask this question, Pascal, and I will ask it to you too. If you could pick, I know I'm looking at your Instagram feed when I'm asking this question, so I'm kind of guessing. I'm trying to guess who you might say, but who would you pick to maybe spend a day out shooting with, dead or alive? Doesn't matter.
I would find it hard to nail down a lot of the guys, like sort of Don McCullen type, that were conflict photographers, especially the guys that shot during the Vietnam War and the Korean War. There was something really about the images that they produced, and I suppose we're very fortunate that we're looking at a very romanticized almost view of it, because we're sitting in the comfort of our armchairs flicking these sort of beautiful images page by page in a book. But really what we're looking at is death and destruction. But those guys put themselves out there for a variety of reasons, both to show what went on in the world, to try and maybe enlighten people and say that, you know, this isn't the answer, killing each other, and also to show something that they felt was like a burning desire for them to go out and just take photographs. And I suppose the reason we own a camera is to want to take photographs, purely and simply. You know.
Well, I'm looking, as I said, I'm looking at your Instagram feed, and it's interesting that right at the beginning you mentioned the black and white, because there is some black and white and it's beautiful, but mostly it's color. And, you know, I get this strong kind of sense of primary colors. There's lots of red, blues and yellows and greens. And it looks really nice. And I thought you might have said somebody like Saul Leiter. I think that to me your work kind of has that kind of twist to it. But it's been lovely chatting to you, Pascal. How can especially for our listeners who are in Northern Ireland, how can they find you and come and?
Well, the shop has its own Facebook page, which I tend to post on daily, either with maybe just bits of equipment, or sometimes I'll just highlight, showcase a picture that I've taken that morning out on a wander. So I have that. The website is there, but it's there more as a shop window for customers, because I would prefer a customer to talk to face-to-face, because I feel I can offer a better level of just simple service to them, as opposed to just looking at anybody's website and picking a product, so it's nice to talk to people about what their type of photography is and what they want to get out of it, and try and sort of show them, look, well, this camera does this camera does that, and get them to become passionate about photography also.
Thanks to Pascal Diamond, and all the actual links to his Insta, etc. will be on the FujiCast show page today. That's where we keep all these links. Now this week over on my other podcast on Photography Daily, a Wednesday show that's dedicated to Instagram. Do Insta, don't do Insta, do social. Don't do social sounds like a politician, I know. But I've brought in two guests to talk about Insta. Although actually, even if you've started to see Instagram as that thing to steer clear of, for whatever rational or emotional decision you may have, I think this is still a show that should fascinate. Photographer Johnny Keeley, whose new growing YouTube following is right now based in part about the big debate of what's happening in Instaland.
And Instagram has been a photo app this whole time, and it has had video for a very long time. So I think really all he's saying, I may be wrong, all he's saying is that now this is going to be a more ambiguous platform, which is just about sharing what it is that you do through whatever means you want to.
And then Helen Jones-Florio, whose intriguing doors project of shop fronts and doorways in Malta and West Africa is an example of how projects can still have a great and immediate gallery space on Instagram. It's not a question of likes, more a question of seeing the work out there.
I think I was doing it more and more to begin with. I was really posting a lot almost every day, and then I kind of slowed down, and now I'm to the point of doing it every sort of maybe 4 or 5 days just to keep it current. And also I'm curious because I'm doing photography prints as well, and I have sold a couple from the Instagram feed.
So one guest is all about what's happening, our other is how it can be a great place for project building. That's our Instagram show on Wednesday over on Photography Daily, and of course on Friday we go photo walking, an on-location podcast. Right, back to questions. Have you got one there in Facebook?
I have Mark Holl. He says, a question for both of you. If you could travel anywhere right now to go shoot and money wasn't an issue, where would you go? I know where I'd go.
Where?
To my bed.
Oh, Kev.
Take my camera, put it on my bedside table.
Yeah.
Listen to my sleepy songs on iTunes. I don't use. Why did I say iTunes? I never use iTunes. Netflix. No, not Netflix. What's the green one?
Spotify.
Yeah. That's it.
Here's Kev asleep. A story of Kev asleep. You could set it on timer. 1 picture every hour. I know the timer doesn't do that, but
a straight 3 days sleeping now. Yeah, we've had this kind of question before, haven't we? And both of us always go. But I don't know. Have you got anything in your mind you'd jump on a plane straight away for? Doesn't have to be a plane. Could be a train.
Well, I guess it would be a plane. I know that's not very environmentally friendly of me, but I'm looking forward to going back to Africa. I suggested to you, Kev, we go back to Africa together. There's certain side of. I love the Gambia, as you know, talking constantly about it, but there's a ferry between Banjul and a little town on the other side called Barra. And that sort of crossing with all the busyness of it, and it really is. It's kind of like it's. Have you ever been on the Studland ferry?
Is that the one that goes to the Isle of Wight?
No, in Dorset. Goes between the two lands of the Studland Bay and.
I might have done. Is it a chain ferry?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes, I have then.
So this is not a chain ferry in the Gambia because it's far too. The stretch of water is really long. But it always reminds me of it because of the style of this particular ferry. But unlike in Studland where everybody sort of rolls on, they're very and you might get out and walk around. This one, it's like a throng of people on there selling food, selling clothes. There's chickens and goats running everywhere, and it's just bedlam, but it's brilliant. And Kev, you and I would quite happily cross that ferry there, back, all day long, because you would have so many wonderful stories. Everybody's really friendly, except the blooming African wasps. Last time I was on, I got stung by one. The cake lady brought me the cakes, and she brought me a wasp as well.
I don't like the sound of that.
This thing was huge, Kev. It was like a dinner plate. It was like somebody had stabbed me on the head with a pencil. It felt like, poof, and then everybody laughed at me. They call the visitors there. They call us two babs, and everybody was looking around saying, "Oh, two babs got stung," and it was great sort of hilarity for everybody. I joined in obviously and winced a lot and pretended it was funny, whilst inside I was really crying.
Why two babs?
Well, there's lots of different thoughts on this. One of them is because if you think of monetary, two bob. So it used to be this sort of tipping amount, here's two bob.
Right.
So then they became known as two babs. There's another reason for it. I can't think of the other reason.
Moobs.
Moobs?
Is it because of your moobs? If I went, it'd be about my moobs.
Well, here comes two moobs.
Here comes two bab and moobs.
No, I don't think it's anything to do with that at all, Kev, funnily enough.
I want to go, if I could go anywhere, I want to go to somewhere like Ascension Island.
Oh, yes.
Right in the middle of nowhere.
I wouldn't like the flight into that, though, Kev. Have you seen the aircraft coming into Ascension Island?
Yeah. I knew somebody... what's the... maybe it wasn't Ascension Island. I knew a journalist a long time ago who... no, Cook Islands. Is it the Cook Islands where they had the child abuse things? I'm just looking it up now.
Where are you going with this one, Kev?
Cook Islands, yeah, it might have been. No, was it the Cook Islands? Give me a second.
Why does that story come to mind, though?
Oh well, because a journalist friend of mine had to go.
Right, okay, yeah.
No, it wasn't the Cook Islands. Anyway, it's like there's only about 25 people live on this place, and he had to go. First of all, he had to fly to Argentina. Then he had to fly to Falkland Islands. Then he had to fly from there to, I think. Then he went to Ascension Islands. Then he got a boat and everything. It took about 4 days to get there.
Wow!
And it was a big story in the Guardian about this tiny little British island where there'd been issues with basically incest, right?
This is not the Cook Islands now. This is the place where your friend went.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't do a court case or anything because they obviously like no judges can get there or anything, so they had to they had to do it by themselves. So they built themselves a little prison for this man. And it was basically a box, and he was allowed to, he all he had to do was sleep in it. Everything else he could carry on doing normally.
What?
Yeah,
what sort of justice is that?
I know, but they were trying to make a point that you've grown up with this kind of this philosophy of reproduction, but it's not right.
No, it's not right. No, I'm just looking at pictures. I'm just looking at the pictures of the Cook Islands, though. Yeah. Wow, look at this place.
Yeah, Cook Islands be ace, wouldn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful.
Way too many people there for my liking, though. 17,000.
But that's spread across 25 islands, Kev.
I know, but Ascension Island's only got 800 people. I could deal with that.
Could you?
Yeah.
Would you like somewhere that's in the middle of nowhere, nobody goes there?
Yeah, love it. Go and, portraits, all of that kind of stuff. I'd absolutely love that.
There is an island just off Norway as well, isn't there? Which has there's lots of little islands off Norway, but this one is you can go and be the lighthouse keeper.
Oh, I'd love that as well.
Just you, the lighthouse, the building. You can take some friends, or you can go on your own.
Have you seen the film The Lighthouse? The black and white one came out about 2 years ago maybe.
No.
Ooh, you gotta watch that. Watch it in the dark, late at night, by yourself.
Oh right, is it like The Fog? Do you what happens
it's
in
a bit like that? Yeah, it's really really good film.
When the fog
it's
descends, is it a horror then? Is it?
I wouldn't call it a horror. It's because I watched it.
I was going to say,
although I did, there was bits that I didn't watch because I kind of went into the other room. But I wouldn't call it horror. Probably, let's just call it psychological thriller.
Well, Mrs. Marple is usually your limit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Simon McRae. Hey guys, just curious if you've seen the relatively new culling software called Narrative Select. Have we done this one? I don't think we have actually.
I think so.
It has a lovely modern interface. It's lean and fast. Most importantly, it has AI, which can evaluate all faces in a pic and grade each pic on face focus and eye opening. It does so in a very helpful and non-obtrusive way. It works wonders on group photos, isolating out each individual face in the side panel and grading each one individually. It doesn't care if people are looking at the camera or not, just that their eyes aren't closed.
Wow.
If you allow it, it will also silo bad pics for you automatically. Shipping the selected photos to Lightroom is done with a single click of the ship button. No setup needed, and you can import directly from card or from disk.
I was sent an email by Narrative to test that, or not to necessarily test it, but I get those emails. If you use this and then talk about it on YouTube, but it's Mac only, so I obviously can't use it, or it was then anyway. But yeah, that sounds quite interesting. Although I would never trust software to decide what a good picture is or not.
But you wouldn't mind if it was your group shots, because then you could just. It sounds like
they're all terrible.
Oh, Kev. But no, this would be your helper, because you could just shoot away on these and then say, "Do your best," and walk away.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. Yeah.
Simon did say in brackets, "Looks like the AI tool you've been looking for, Kev."
Yeah, maybe it is. But I'm not buying a Mac for it.
Not even for group shots, Kev.
No way, Jose.
You surprised me. Right, shall we do Book of the Week? Because we did Book of the week very late last week's show, and it was right at the end. And it's unusual to do that as the last thing in the show. So, Book of the Week. This one intrigues me, actually.
It's called Do Photo.
Do Photo.
There's a sub kind of titles: Observe, Compose, Capture, Standout, and it's by Andrew Paynter.
Right.
So this book, this is like a Bible. I say it's like a Bible, but it's a new book to me.
Yeah.
But almost everything in here is the stuff that I witter on about all the time to people. I'll read you the blurb, right? Because the blurb is interesting. This isn't a book about how to take the best pictures. It's not even about the technical aspects of photography or how to make it as a photographer. In fact, it argues that you should take fewer photographs, ticking all the boxes there for me, by sharing 10 practices honed over a lifetime spent behind the lens working with clients such as Adidas, Levi Strauss, and Apple. Photographer Andrew Paynter encourages you to develop a more considered approach to photography so that you craft pictures with care. So it's broken down into kind of mini sections, and it's ace. Honestly, you've been on my workshops and stuff, I'm forever telling people that anybody can be a photographer, but it's only you can see what you want to see and be an observer and build your pictures that way. So this is broken down. There is pictures to illustrate what he's on about, and they're beautiful pictures as well, but it's mostly text, instructional stuff. So practice number 5, so I've just flipped, happens to be the middle one, and this is like my favorite one ever. Leave your ego behind.
Ooh.
Yes. Amen, Andrew Paynter.
And that's the end of the show. We'll see you next week.
That's it. So, and interestingly, the first bit of text on that chapter says, "My wife is a nurse in the neonatal intensive care unit, and her job is real. Yeah. She saves lives, sees newborns die, and experiences intense highs and lows with a range of patients under various circumstances." And then he kind of goes on to explain how that has not only influenced him in terms of how he views everything, but also, the bigger picture of life. And so his photography has kind of matured around that, the ideology of, everything is there to be photographed, everything is important kind of thing. But he's a photographer. He's not a neonatal nurse.
Yeah. I always find that also a little bit, is dangerous the right word? Probably not. But, where people think, well, I'm only this. And you think, no, you're not. You're that. It may not be. Steve Wright used to say, sorry, for those that live in the UK, a bit of a clang here. But I remember Wrighty used to say, when I worked at the Beeb, he'd say, it's not brain surgery, love. It's not brain surgery. Don't take yourself too seriously. Which was correct. And at the same time, though, I remember that feeling when our Chancellor said, or suggested, or it felt like he suggested, that we weren't in viable occupations. Our jobs weren't as important as key workers. And I felt a little bit uncomfortable about that, because I was saying, well, what are you saying? Is my life, is what I do pointless? Is it worthless?
Yeah, and he can do everything he needs to do on a calculator.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though, Kev?
Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean.
The conversation, funny enough, at a barbecue, we had Jack, our eldest, I think he was trying to wind me up, said, well, everybody here, Daddy, is a key worker, except you. I know he was trying to wind me up, so I just threw a can of beer at him. But no, I didn't really. Of course, I didn't. But you're right, Kev. Leave the ego at the door. But be careful you don't confuse ego with having self-worth. I mean, we don't cure cancer. We don't prone patients on a COVID ward. We don't teach tomorrow's great scientists and discoverers. We take pictures, or we make pictures, if you will. I mean, could the world turn without us? Probably. But we're all part of this fabric. And I always think that this know your place philosophy is a tricky balancing act mentally. It feels like a parent placing their offspring back in the box if they get too youthfully excited about something. But
I totally agree. I mean, that's just one part of this book, basically. You know, and I'll read out the 10 sections.
Yeah.
Number 1 is be present.
Yes.
Very important. Number 2, observe. Amen. Number 3, connect. Number 4, disarm your subject.
Disarm?
I think that's when he's in conflict photography. That's a joke. Number 5, leave your ego. Number 6, play. Number 7, create. Number 8, pace yourself. Number 9, invest. And number 10, curate.
Yes. Yes.
So the invest, element of things, I'm kind of glancing through the text here, is more about time and energy. And I suppose that's coupled with the leave your ego element behind. We've all, not many people, but some people do, think that they can just take shortcuts to becoming a really good photographer, and there ain't no shortcuts. You just got to keep going and practice, and the more you do it, the better you'll get. 6 or 7, I can't remember what that one was. But play. That's a very good one. Yes. Yeah. Number 6 is play. Yeah. Now the picture on that one is a picture. I'm not sure whether it's him, whether it's a self-portrait or not. Somebody, a guy lying on a hump of land, pretending to be Superman, and then he goes on to say, my earliest and fondest memories are of long summer days spent swimming in the sea, running through fields and exploring nearby forests with my friends. By approaching shoots and individual photographs through a playful lens, you allow things to be and feel free. Yes. Play is the ingredient that allows you to truly create and let the camera become secondary. So, kind of reading between the lines there, it doesn't have to be pin sharp. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned. It can just be fun. Fun is good. Yeah. I think that's what street photography does for so many people, and that's why so many photographers do say it feels like their sort of their catharsis moment. That they're out there, they're playing, they can do what they like, they don't have to subscribe to any methodology, or they don't have to follow the rules. It's an open playground. Yeah. Number 8, pace yourself. Basically, do not shoot the shit out of it. Put your camera down, watch, observe. They all interlink. All these things come together. Take it off motor wind. Yeah, be present, observe. It's great. It's a lovely little handbook. It's only small. I would say it's like A5 size. Yeah. £8.99 from the Do Book Company. I was just looking the Do Book Company up, and they've got some great titles in here. Do Breathe, calm your mind, find focus. There's one here on Do Team, how to get the best from everyone. Do Design, why beauty is key to everything. There you go. What a great lineup of books here. The Do Books. The Do Books. The Do Books. The Do Books. The dobook.co is the website. We will, of course, link to it in the show notes that nobody ever reads. But they do read it. They don't. I sit there I'm in there on Monday, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for people to turn up. Oh yeah. Well, do you not notice the figures go through the roof? No, some people do use it. Yeah. But it's a podcast. Why would they? They don't need to go to the website. Well, if you were to put up a picture every week, a provocative picture of you, Kev, in your pants in the front room, it's got shock value, Kev. You've got to admit it. Yeah, I think that would truly frighten enough people off that our listeners would just disappear overnight. Maybe not then. All right, well, I think then the battle cry for this week is to go see the links to the stuff that we discuss, fujicast.co.uk, and look for today's episode. There we are. Well, one of my long, medium, short, long-term project things is to move it to Squarespace, but because of the theme we used, I used when we did it, that is a very, very, it's basically a start from scratch job. Oh. So it's on my list. On the list. I enjoy doing Squarespace content. I don't enjoy doing the WordPress stuff on a Monday morning. I have to say, it's a pain because it's WordPress and it's all weird.
It's funny, isn't it? Because if you rewind, maybe nearly 2 years when we, it's over 2 years now, Kev, or whenever it was when we started doing this podcast. In the early days of the questions coming in about website design, probably it was very much, well, you must use WordPress because of this, and this.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. If we think right back to when we started, I think you're absolutely right. We don't need to talk about Squarespace and WordPress again. And there are others. We have had emails saying, don't forget about. I think there's one called Format and, all the others and everything that are out there. But yes, however, it's no fun. On Monday, for example, when I went in to do it, the PHP had been updated, and that meant some of the plugins stopped working. And I was like, oh god. That's what I said. You
know how long you spend actually doing the show notes? Yeah. I spend as long putting bleeps in the show.
I know. I'm sorry.
You do it on purpose, I'm sure. Paul, but it's only because we want to make it as family friendly as we can for you. But actually, the other day we had it playing in the house, and Thomas said, "What did Kev say then?" When he so actually, it created debate. Here's one from Paul Marshall. I'm on this kind of, have we done this? But he's very hot at the moment as we record this, and I can't remember. Hi, Neale and Kev. I've been planning a project close to my heart and have been given the go-ahead. This project will hopefully become a published piece, and the subject will be portraits of elderly parents, grandparents with dementia, and a small paragraph about their lives. The front cover will have my father's portrait in black and white. All images will be shot at the homes with lighting set up. My question to you and the listeners, is about planning the book side of the project. Any tips with suppliers would be great. Software uses to create the book, etc. What a project, Kev.
Yeah, sounds amazing, doesn't it? Yeah, if you can get it up and running and get going with it, do it.
Not easy to do. Any suppliers? Well, we've had a few people of late use, who was it? It was at XYZ's books, which are really good. I think I might be wrong here, but I think that's the one that Alex Fredrickson used, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
and I believe she sort of got guidance on that one from the wonderful books that Sean Tucker puts out.
Correct.
Because I think he used them as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they used them was because Blurb are great, and I'm a big proponent of Blurb, and I've used them for a lot of stuff that I've done. But I think when you're doing larger runs, the finance and the setup of the other company was better, wasn't it?
Yeah, they are. I think I've never done one with them, but they do seem to be the ones that people go to. Yeah. Software
to create it?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know.
You're probably going to be working in design if you're doing it with anybody else but somebody like Blurb. Blurb, of course, have their own software that you can use, which is really easy to use. Very good, actually.
Yeah, and you can also get a plugin for Lightroom for it as well.
In terms of the actual of the subject matter, though, that's a very powerful subject there. Small paragraph about their lives as well. Good luck with that, Paul, because that's incredible.
If you get it done, send it in. We'll have it on Book of the Week.
Yes. I think we've got time for another one from you, Kev.
Okay, here we go. Stephen Jack, he says, "Hey guys, question for the podcast. Please, can you briefly explain about external hard drives, SSD or HDD? Which one for what?"
Well, Kev, we're smack bang in your area of expertise, so we are.
It's a little bit. The question's a little bit confusing because it says SSD or HDD. So an SSD is HDD stands for hard disk drive. SSD stands for solid state drive. And actually, a solid state drive is still a hard disk drive. Typically, though, a solid state drive is going to be a lot faster than a mechanical spindle drive, which is what most people kind of would traditionally have in their computers. These days, most laptops, I would imagine, all these new fancy Mac, what they call them, M1s or whatever, they probably all use solid state drives. So they're more expensive, they're much smaller, but they're a lot quicker. The data speed transfer is a lot quicker.
Well, they should be outrageously expensive then.
They're a lot cheaper than they used to be, in fairness, and they're getting bigger as well. So it used to be like a 256 gig SSD in your laptop was basically all you'd get, but now you can get like 2, 3, and I think even possibly 4 gig SSDs. There is a downside with SSDs in that the lifespan of them can be less. I say
by a lot, or
sometimes, yeah, it depends. I think now the technology is a lot better, But yeah, there's kind of, because it's something to do with, I don't know, like, I really don't know what it is, but presumably like the photons hitting the storage device is eventually it's going to run out eventually. A little bit like using a memory card, isn't it? In your camera, eventually it's going to wear down. And of course, a spindle drive, a mechanical drive, that also has a shelf life, because eventually that spindle will break, or the read-write head on top of it will snap or something. So I mean, I SSDs for me all the way though. That's my computer has my desktop computer here has 2 SSDs. I use one of them for the operating system and software, installed software, and the other one is a 2 terabyte SSD, which is my working drive. So any editing, filmmaking, music, whatever, is all done on that 2 terabyte SSD. And then I have 4 6 terabyte mechanical drives in there as well. So they are everything. Once it's done off the working stuff, is all shipped over to one of those drives.
My word, Kev, you could power NASA with that.
I could, yeah. That's because it's not Apple.
Oh, listen to you. I learned the other day something quite interesting, which is nothing to do with SSDs, but just while it's at the top of my mind, that every time you go search for something on Alexa, I won't say the name in case then everything comes alive and you've got something in the room as you're listening to the show, then it's like every time you ask her a question, it's tantamount to boiling 4 kettles because of the big data thing.
Wow, really? That's like become a new thing. Only it's like Elon Musk, wasn't it? A couple of months ago said, "Oh, the internet's bad for the environment," and everybody suddenly went, "Is it?
Is it? How?"
Yeah, and I mean, it must be because there's lots of power going out. You know, there's a computer somewhere doing it, isn't it?
Well, it's all got to go off and search and do, and even though it doesn't take very long. Now, I don't know whether it's 4 kettles. Well, that's what we were talking about last night. How big are the kettles? Small kettles.
Is it like one of the ones you get in the travel lodge where you can't even get it under the sink, or is it a big old 5-litre kettle?
Well, I don't know, Kev, but it's 4 kettles. By the way, when you go and stay in, not necessarily that one, because it can be in any hotel, do you always boil the kettle with water? Do you run it through once, then pour it away, and then make your tea and coffee?
No, I don't. But every time I don't do that, I remember you telling me the story that you might be about to tell.
No, I'm not going to tell it again, just in case I've told it too many times, which sounds like I have.
No, I think you told me.
Always boil your kettle. In fact, it's not very environmentally friendly, though, so no.
Why?
Just drink cold water.
Why should you always boil your kettle in a hotel room, Neale?
Because people do strange things into kettles.
God damn
and the reason...
Never go to a hotel in Merthyr Tydfil then, for God's sake.
The reason I know that is not because I've done something like that or had it done to me. Is because I read this article where they'd done a test at various hotels and found bits of... Should we move on?
Yes. Is that the end of the show? Bye-bye.
I think it might be the end. I've just got one point to make, actually. It's not so much a question, but we'll end on this one, which is good news. Because good news, Kev, Street is not on the way out. Thomas, I'm going to get the name wrong, I know. It's either Gerulate or Gerulat. Gerulat? Thomas in Germany. Thank you for the great podcast. I'm a happy listener since episode 1. Just missed a couple of the early ones, the dailies during the pandemic. But you were talking about the laws and rules about photography and street, specifically in Europe, and stating that it would not be allowed in Europe. Situation actually is a lot better, specifically in Germany. GDPR, the law, generally sees taking pictures as processing of personal data, and therefore it would be protected and needs approval. However, GDPR also introduces the term, this is the important bit, Kev, legitimate interest, where every country can define a more specific view and exceptions. And this is what happened in Germany. The outcome is photographers have a legitimate interest to document any kind of event, any person attending an event, and that includes weddings, concerts, demonstrations, and so on. Needs to assume that his or her picture or video is taken, so you have a sort of implicit approval as a photographer or videographer. You can share and publish wherever you want. That explicitly includes images where that person is the main subject, so portraits, dancing, people on street, no matter whether that person would be easily recognizable. So in Germany, you're good to go. And I personally believe that situation in many European countries is much better than the public claims make us believe. So,
well, that's good. So
street photography, so says Thomas, is not going to die.
Good. I'm off to Hoffenheim.
Well, there we go.
I love that name.
Hoffenheim. And that's it. I think that's a good note to end on this week. You've got a little bit of kettle dilemma, and then knowing that street togging is safe.
Oh, you said togging.
I know. I thought that
That's
might
it.
wind you up. Yeah.
I'm going to go and join Fuji Love. Oh, you're on there, by the way.
I did. Yeah, I saw. It was very weird being the other side of the microphone.
Yeah. So if you want to listen to Neale be an interview, he's on Fuji Love.
Yeah, I was on Fuji Love. And it was a really pleasant experience. I really enjoyed it, actually. And I do like the podcast. So that's it for this week. If you can share the episode on Twitter or Facebook, you're an absolute star. Let us know where you're sharing, because we'd like to give those platforms a shout out too. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play nice, of course. Right, we do need some questions, because as summer comes up, usually it means I don't know why, traditionally we seem to get less questions in the summer. So don't forget us.
In the summertime when the questions are low.
Oh, that was a big hit. Who did that one? And of course, Kev won't be in Spain this year doing in fact, was it last year? You were in Spain and I was in the UK doing this. No, it was the year before.
Wasn't it? It was the year before.
Yeah. So we definitely need your questions. Send them to click@fujicast.co.uk, or you can send them via the Facebook group. Thank you to all those that support the show by Patreon. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io, and we will see you next week. Bye, Kev.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.